I have no idea where we're going to go with this.
Yeah. All right. As usual, we were chit-chatting away and we hit a gold mine, and I was like, we need to press record with this. So if you're out there wondering if maybe you have a problem with scrolling, with relationships, with how many cookies you eat, with online shopping or gambling, with anything really. I mean, the
Video
obvious ones,
games.
video games.
I'm a
Yeah.
gamer. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The obvious ones are drugs and alcohol, but there's a lot of them out there, and some of them you get applause for, like working too much.
Mm.
They've some of them are slightly more socially acceptable than others. But what are they about? They're all about numbing ourselves out so that we don't have to feel what we're feeling.
I escape. I call it my escape. I don't want to do this. I don't want to feel that. Escape, whether that's online shopping or my gaming. It's so much easier, Laura, to do that than to face whatever shit we have to face.
Mm-hmm.
And it's addiction. It's an addiction. Like you said, no matter what form it takes, all you have to do is go outside your door and see everybody on their phone. It seems like everybody is an addict, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, yeah. And I can't count the number of people who are like, oh, the younger generation, they're so addicted to their phones. And I'm like, have you seen yourself? Really?
Let me tell
If
you.
I said, could I just borrow your smartphone for 24 hours?
They would flip out. They would. I see it all the time. I see parents with little ones at restaurants and at stores, and they're just completely ignoring their kid and texting. And I go, "What? Of course the kid's going to be on the phone." And this is what we're growing up in? No, So I think, we started off, said, Laura, we got to talk about, the fact that everyone's feeling this really dense energy. But then we got off on this tangent because you're going through a lot. You've been doing a lot of trauma work. And what I love about you, Laura, is that you're very real and you're raw and you're very open. As am I. Flaws and all. We're in this journey trying to figure out the same thing, really.
Yeah. Yeah, we really are. I mean, I think, the sad thing about the human psyche and about addiction in particular is that it leaves us feeling isolated and like we're the only ones. And the beautiful thing about any space that's safe, including the recovery rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous and all the other multitude of anonymous fellowships, is that they remind you that you are definitely not alone, and that we live in a society of people who are trying to cope. And most of us are trying to cope with at least one addiction, if not multiple addictions. And, that there's a solution. And the solution is, firstly, you don't have to be alone. You find other people who are struggling with the same thing as yourself. And then it's not it's funny. I was just saying earlier, there's some confusion about what.
Well, let me bring up why. Let me bring it up why, because I think it's important, because you really taught me something about this. I was telling Laura before we started recording that I had a podcast series. It was just one season, but it was addicts, mostly alcohol and drugs, hard drug, all of them in their 20s. And they were very real, very raw, very open in their stories. And I said to Laura, they were self-medicating. They said, before 12-step, I was self-medicating. I didn't realize I needed mental health. My mental health was deteriorated, whether it was at one person, I think it was at age 9, had her first drink because her parents were going through a divorce and her mom was remarrying and she was left alone. And this was her out. Oh, if I have a drink, wow, that feels good. I'm disappearing. And then I said, so it was self-medication. And then you completely told me something. So go ahead and tell me what you said, because it was brilliant.
Yeah. I think a lot of us, because we have been self-medicating, we assume that when we come into an addiction recovery program, that on some level it's going to be a self-help program. And it's definitely not. What we're doing is we're stepping into a space where we're connecting with others. The addiction keeps us isolated, and recovery is about stepping into a place where there is a tribe of people who will love us until we can love ourselves, and then connecting to a power greater than ourselves that you can call God, but you can call, the
The
power greater
divine,
than the divine
all that is.
goddess, reality.
Mhm.
It doesn't matter what you call it. It can be Mickey Mouse. A power that is not you, that is loving and kind, that can help you to recover from this thing that you are powerless over. And if you're powerless over it, step one is we admitted we were powerless over whatever the drug is, and that our lives had become unmanageable. And, if you can't put something down, it's clear that you're powerless over it. And you need, therefore, the idea that you are also the solution, that is a self-help, is that doesn't work, right? If I'm powerless over this thing, I need something I need a new source of power, essentially. And I think, and this ties into a broader theme of we're living in a time when a lot of people are waking up. And the first thing that happens when you wake up, think about if you have a dead leg. The first thing that happens when you wake up from having a dead leg is it hurts.
So true.
You're aware of the fact that the leg that was dead is now, the blood is rushing into it, and it doesn't feel good.
No.
So for many of us, the first moments of that sort of coming to, it doesn't feel that good. Right. It feels like, oh my God, I can see I'm powerless over this and this and this, and my life is a mess. My life is unmanageable. And, the good news is that once we admit that things are unmanageable and that we can't handle them, then we're open to the solution.
The whole let it go. It's another way of let it go. And I think a friend of mine was asking me when I was talking about the planets and where they're at in the position, is the next 20 years coming up on the beginning of almost the next 20 years. There are so many things in the sky that is just, oh my God, out of our control. And she said, what can I do? What can I do? Because we can't control the planets. So what can we do? And I think that you just hit on something so, so important. And why we are doing this is you connect with like-minded souls in your tribes. And that's where the help comes from. You help each other.
Yeah.
Chills.
Yeah. I mean, if I'm at home doom scrolling, it can get real dark real fast, right? I mean, there's a lot of stuff out there that is not only scary, but is designed to scare us. Algorithms that are there to scare you so that you do indulge in the addiction, because most of the addictions that we're addicted to, somebody is profiting from.
Absolutely.
Somewhere
I can't
along the way.
This one stupid game I've been playing for 10 years. It is the dumbest thing, but it's stupid. I'm like, why am I playing this? Because this person and I got in a fight. I don't want to deal with it. I don't want to deal with it. I'm just playing my game.
Right.
It's total escapism.
And if you go back to any behavior that you engage in, where there's a part of you that's like, why the hell am I doing this? Like, why did I just eat all of those cookies? I don't even like those cookies. Why am I playing this stupid game?
Right.
Why am I continuously dating men that are completely emotionally unavailable? Why? If you go back to any of those scenarios, at some point, somewhere along the line, your system shut down and said, I cannot handle this. I can't do it. I can't do it. I can't handle what is happening in my body and in my emotions and in my mind. And so I am going to find any way possible to check out. And it's a self-protection mechanism. It's self-medication. And on many levels, honestly, it's what got a lot of us through our childhood.
Ain't that the truth?
It's
self-preservation. Even if
it was self-preservation for many people.
Yeah.
This is too painful. Whatever it was, your parents got divorced, you were in an abusive home, you were neglected on some level, you were in a school and were bullied. I mean, whatever it is, there was there is a 2-year-old in you or a 4-year-old in you or a 10-year-old in you who was like, this is too painful.
Mhm.
And as kids, it's a mechanism. It's what we have, right?
Mhm.
Okay,
Yeah.
fine. I'm going to drink alcohol then, or whatever it is. But as adults, we have a choice.
Mhm.
We get to say, okay, this is a bunch of emotions and thoughts that overwhelmed me when I was a kid. And it was, this behavior that I developed was self-preservation. But at this point, I get to choose, do I want to keep doing this?
Mhm. Yep.
And if the answer is no, then we're going to need help, because if we're powerless over it, we're going to need something to pull us out. And
Mhm.
I've picked up so many 12-step programs along the way that it's practically embarrassing. I am in recovery from an addiction to stealing, an addiction to relationships that don't serve me, an addiction to food, an addiction to media and to scrolling, an addiction to, and what I found is that as I take those things out of my life,
Mhm.
not only do I have less that I can go to numb me, but I also have, it feels like I have less that I can control. And here's why, obviously there are certain addictions that don't look like control. If you're taking a bunch of heroin, that's not about control. That's about numbing out. But
Mhm.
there are certain other addictions that actually, in addition to giving us a numbing out feeling, look like they give us the illusion of control.
Mhm.
Workaholism is one of them.
Mhm.
Um, Scrolling on certain types of media. Certain computer games give us a sense of agency. Like, oh,
Mhm.
I just completed that level.
So true. Absolutely. Or I
So
just
they're
got this
giving
many
us
likes on a video. Boy,
exactly.
that's
So they're
really
giving
hard.
us not only that numbing feeling, but they're giving us the illusion of control. And
Mm.
so they're doubly addictive. And as we step into that moment of, okay, do I want to end this or not? Which is always a decision. You can keep
Mhm.
going, you can keep doing whatever it is till you die. Some people do. But do you want to try something else? And as I've taken those things out of my life, I've gotten to a point, I'm 15 years into my recovery now. I mean, with a relapse, I had a pretty brutal relapse, but I'm back since 2019. So I guess I'm now 5 years back. And as I've taken all of these things out, what I find myself with in 2024 is a lot of open space.
Mm.
And in that space, in that silence, there's nothing to distract me anymore. I don't even scroll anymore because that's been taken off my plate.
Mhm.
There's a fellowship for that. Um, I don't have anything to distract me. And I believe that this has happened now because I'm ready to face it. I am ready to face the trauma.
Mm.
And,
You got a
15 years
bumpy
ago,
ride here.
right, it's a
Yeah.
bumpy ride.
Yeah.
And, but here's the thing, I could die with this trauma. I could do that. I can definitely do that. I've watched other people in my family do
Mhm.
that.
Mhm.
I can make that choice, but I know what that looks like. And honestly, I no, I don't want to do that. I've seen that. Um, I don't know what it looks like to really work through trauma, because honestly, there are not that many examples out there.
I'm glad you
Thank
said that. I'm really because you touched on something that I wanna bring up, but go ahead and finish because it's something that, I think
uh,
is, can be confusing for people.
no, I go ahead. Whatever's coming up for you.
What's coming up is something that I do, is you think that you are on the right way, and then you find yourself making excuses for yourself or whatever didn't work or what is. There's a lot of I'm doing this right. I don't know how to put it. We fill ourselves with excuses thinking that what we're doing is absolutely right. Does that make sense?
Keep
And I
going.
don't know I don't know how to put that in words other than, like, for example, if I'm having a relationship issues with a man and he's not doing what I want him to do or say what I want him to say, um, I will say, "Well, I'm gonna let it go. I'm in control of this. Now I'm gonna go, play my game, go scroll, go do this." And my excuse is, well, he screwed up. It's not, instead of taking back where is my responsibility in all of this? Does that make
Mhm.
sense? Because
Yeah.
there is a fine line between you're not in control and excuses and do you understand what I'm saying? And yeah,
Okay, I think I get what you're saying, yeah.
okay, good.
So, one of the key prayers in the 12-step rooms is the serenity prayer, which many people know even outside of the rooms, which is, God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change,
Mhm.
the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference.
Mm,
And those three pieces are all important. So, what are the things we can't change? Other people,
mhm.
other people's behavior, pretty much everything out there in the world. I mean, I remember my first sponsor saying, Laura, put your finger on your nose. Okay, everything behind your finger is what you can control.
It's true.
And I did not
Yeah.
like that
Yeah.
because I was very much trying to control my boyfriend at the time.
Mhm.
And so that first piece of the serenity prayer points to you have been trying to play God, Laura. I was very convinced that God didn't exist. And the way that that manifested was that I was trying to control everything.
Mm,
I basically thought I was in control of how I behaved and how you behaved and how the person behind me in traffic should behave and how the government should behave. And, I had an opinion about how everyone should behave, and they just did it the way that I thought that they should do it, then the world would be a better place.
let me give them a script.
Sound familiar?
Yes, very
So
much so.
so one of the things that we learn to do in recovery is to just step back that and look at it with a sense of humor.
Mhm.
Because honestly, it's how all human brains work. But we
Absolutely.
look at it with a sense of humor and we go, oh, look at that. That is making my life unmanageable because I am trying to control things that are out of my control.
Gotcha.
Now, the next piece of the serenity prayer is courage to change the things we can. And I think this speaks to what you were just saying. It's very easy when I say, okay, I'm going to let it go, to then also say, and I don't have control over anything, which means I can just go and play video games and whatever.
Right.
And actually what that prayer points to is, if you got your finger on your nose and you can control what's behind it, that means there's something in here that I can control.
Mm,
And this speaks to, in my opinion, to the Justice card and to the Hermit card. So in the first 7 cards of the Major Arcana, we've been really focused on what's going on out there. And we've been trying to control what's out there. We've been trying to control other people. We've been trying to manifest stuff. We've been
mm,
trying to become knowledgeable and to create all ego stuff, right? We build
mhm,
stuff.
mhm.
And then in the Chariot, we start to get uncomfortable and we realize that this thing that we built maybe isn't working the way that
It's not on
we
all
thought
good
it was.
rocky wheels there, this
Yeah,
chariot.
it's a little bit it's a bit of a dodgy
Unstable.
vehicle.
Mhm,
And so then we come to the Justice card. And the Justice card looks us squarely in the eye and very lovingly says, "Sweetheart, I am not here to send you to prison. I'm just here to ask you to take a very honest inventory of what of this stuff that you've been doing is working for you and what of this stuff is not working for you.
mhm,
Lying is not bad because it makes you immoral or a bad person. Lying just doesn't work."
mm,
And I mean, I get that on some level that's a controversial statement because some people will say, well, look at all the powerful people out there in the world. They're lying and cheating and scheming and they're making millions of dollars. And I would say if your gauge of success is making money, then maybe lying works for you.
mhm,
But if your gauge of success is to be happy, joyous, and free,
mhm.
lying does not work.
The
And I,
average human lies 20 times a day. The average human lies 20 times a day. Think about that.
mhm.
So if you're watching this going, I always tell the truth, liar, and that's okay. It's
Yep,
human.
yep, and
I mean,
sometimes we tell ourselves that it's a white lie and we're doing it, for good reasons, but, I
right.
mean, as somebody who was a pathological liar, I will tell you that one of the things that made my life unmanageable was that I would tell a different story to every single person I met,
Mhm.
and then if 3 of them were in the same room at the same time, I couldn't remember which story I told to
You were
which
in
person.
panic, right?
And so I was in a just total panic and
Yeah.
anxiety. And it somewhat led to my hermiting because I was like, I can't remember who I told what. So,
Yeah. That's
um,
funny.
and, and I would tell lies to make myself sound cooler. And I would tell my lies to make you think I was smarter than I was. And I could talk about books that I'd never read. And, just on and on and on. And so those kinds of things, stealing, cheating, killing, lying, they don't work for you because at the end of the day, you are in so much fear and panic inside that you are never going to live a happy, free life. If you're doing those things, you are not free.
Mm-mm.
And so justice comes in at the end of that first line of the major arcana, and it just lays it out. And it's like, darling, do you want to be free or not? I'll tell a brief story about the first time I worked the steps. I got to step 9, which is the amends step. So that means basically you go around and you say to the people you lied to and cheated, and stole from, you make it up to
I've
them.
had a few calls from people that were in that step.
There you go.
Like, okay, I'm listening. It's all fine.
And what we do is when we make that list, we start with the easy ones, just to build up the muscle, right?
Sure.
And then we put the really hard ones at the bottom of the list. And one of the ones that was at the bottom of the list for me was a job that I'd had in academia where basically instead of grading all of these kids' papers, I'd just gone through and written random grades on each paper. And I did it because I was lazy and I didn't want to grade the papers. And I knew that I should tell the professor that I'd done that. I was his TA. But I knew that if he decided to tell my professor that I'd done that, I could get kicked out of my PhD program and I could lose my visa because I was in the country on a student visa at the time, and I would be asked to leave the country within 24 hours.
Mm-hmm.
So what my brain said to me is, if I tell the truth on this, if I make this amends, I could get kicked out of the country within 24 hours.
Mm-hmm.
So I said to my sponsor, I don't think I should make this amends because there's too much danger behind it. And all my sponsor said to me was, how free do you want to be?
Wow.
And, there are people in the rooms who have even harder decisions to make. Like, do I tell somebody that I did this thing that could land me in jail?
Sure. Yeah.
And I've met several of those people.
Mm-hmm.
And most of them ended up making the amends, and some of them went to jail for it. In fact, one of my dearest friends in the rooms, I met him just after he came out of jail for the thing that he'd been in for 18 months. And he went in there willingly. He was like, I need to serve this sentence so I can be free.
Mm.
And
that's amazing.
isn't
That's
it?
amazing. Yeah, it is. That's, to me, that's what bravery. That's brave.
That's courage in action. So there
Absolutely.
you go. So
Yeah.
that's courage to change the things we can. So what does
Wow.
that mean? That means I can decide that I don't want to lie, not because you'll label me as immoral,
Or not
but
because you'll
because
get caught.
not
It's
because I'll
not that.
get caught. Because
Right.
actually, I stole a lot my entire life and I never got caught.
Mm-hmm.
I never got caught. So I didn't get those consequences. My consequences were all internal.
All the layers of guilt.
Guilt, shame,
Mm-hmm.
self-hatred.
Mm-hmm.
And how free do you want to be, kid? That's all he said. How free do you want to be?
And this, you don't have to be in a 12-step program to gain insight from what you just said, Laura. I mean, wow.
I think
all
what's
these
beautiful
excuses
about a
we
12-step
use.
program, however, is in order to have the courage to do that, I needed a really solid tribe of people around me who were reflecting back to me, I love you.
Mm-hmm.
You're amazing. Yes, you have stolen and lied and cheated, and we believe that you can clear up this mess and become a different human.
Mm-hmm.
And so, can you do this stuff alone? Yes, probably, but I wouldn't want to. And, if a 12-step room is not appropriate for you, then there are other places. There are women's circles. There are men's circles. There are actually increasing number of men's circles, which I love. That's starting to become a thing.
I do too. And
There are
you'll find yourself and I'm interrupting only to say, because what you're doing now is, now I like to call it the wave. You're learning, and as you go, you're creating opportunities for other people. You're coming, as you climb up the ladder, you're leaning back and putting your hand down to help the next person up. That's what this show is
Yes.
about. So I just
Yes.
wanted to put that out there. It's so, so, so important that A, you're not alone. B, that, imagine if you can be free enough to turn around and help that person. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, I get chills when I think about it.
Yeah.
And a lot of it, you know, will it help you as a person, as your ego? Absolutely. You know, that's the human in us. It's like when somebody says
Mm-hmm.
they're giving for charity, they're giving because it makes them feel good.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but and again, you know, you still have to go through the ugly work, though. No matter what, you still have to go through the ugly work.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
think that I couldn't, I'm not Buddha. I can't do it alone. And I'm definitely more of a hermit, even though my job takes me in front of thousands of people all the time. My energy I get back, I've always been that way. I'm very introverted for my energy, but I'm not
Mm-hmm.
Buddha. I can't do it on my own. But I've noticed that I'm connecting with people that accept all this more
Mm-hmm.
and more. And
Yeah.
so if you found this show, again, I say it all the time, you know, this is free for you. We're not trying to sell you anything. You found it for a reason. So
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
there's others like you.
Yeah. Yeah, and we would love to be a resource of sorts in the midst of this, you know, because like Judy was just saying, as we wake up, as humans evolve in this way, as we realize that we want to do it differently, and maybe this society doesn't reflect the peak of human evolution, we need each other, and we need
Absolutely.
not only do we need people to share their stories of, oh yeah, I did that and I made it through to the other side and I loved myself more, but I think, you know, what I'm finding now in my recovery in 2024 is that even though I can definitely share my experience, strength, and hope with newcomers, and I can be that light in recovery for them, I need that tribe around me to do the work that is my work to do now. And
Mhm.
my work now that I've, you know, done that basic amends stuff, now that I don't have all of that stuff from my past that I feel guilty about, the stuff that's coming up for me now is like the core wound stuff,
Mm.
right? It's like the childhood stuff. And it's essentially why I went to those behaviors in the first place.
Mhm.
And it's self-loathing. That's what it is. You know,
Mhm.
underneath all of the arrogance and the lying and the stealing and the I'm better than you and the competitiveness I had and the denial, underneath that was a ton of fear, and underneath that, self-loathing. And, you know, it's taken me many years to get to it, to excavate that. And I think it is because I've put down scrolling and streaming. So literally it gets to, you know, 6 p.m. and I've done all of the things I need to do. And I don't have the option of turning on Netflix anymore.
Mhm.
And in that silence, this work has begun to emerge. And it's, again, it's why we need tribe, because I cannot do this bit alone,
Mhm.
because I can't talk myself intellectually out of emotional and physical trauma.
Mhm.
And so I need, you know, I'm doing IFS therapy. I'm leaning heavily on one of my sponsors right now. And I'm doing the work of really sitting with the feelings, and they're the feelings that I have been running away from for 40 years.
Mm. It's a lot.
It's a lot.
It
It's a
really
lot.
is a lot.
But like I said before, I know what it looks like if you get to 95 and you don't do this work, but I don't think we really know what it looks like if you do. And I,
Mhm.
you know, on some level, that's sad, and it makes it a bit like, it's like kind of feels kind of risky. But on another level, how exciting is that? Like,
And can I just point out something? My very British father, who is 89 years old, is suddenly, I mean, at his age, suddenly he's starting to, you know, I called him up and was telling him about the planets and this Sky Vibe astrology show I do with professional astrologer Thomas Miller. We'll have him on the show, and you on our show, this podcast. And my dad was just, it's almost like he was a different person. He was accepting all this. We had 2 hours of deep dive talking. Um,
Mm.
and the British are very, very stoic, and not that you are, but and that's a blanket statement, but my dad is very much, he's 89. So it doesn't matter necessarily. You could be 90 or you could be 18 or 16 and find this and go, they're I understand what they're saying. I get it. Wait, let me hear more. My
Mhm.
dad, we have this whole talk, and all of a sudden he is saying to me, "Well, Judith, what about this?" And he's talking about the planets, and then all of a sudden we started talking about artificial intelligence, and he says to me, "What if we were AI before we were ever what we were?" And I went, "Oh, Dad, oh, don't do that to my
You just
brain."
blew my mind, Dad.
Right? I mean, like, he would never have said that years ago. So you can become in this journey at any age, and
Yeah.
how amazing is that, you
How
know?
amazing is that?
I mean, chills,
Yeah. And I
chills.
mean, I was sitting in a meeting the other day with a 19-year-old kid who's already sober 2 years and an 80-something-year-old guy who's been around for 50. And, we're all just doing it together.
Yep.
Just doing it together. And nobody's pretending to be smarter or better than anyone else. We're all just doing it together because clearly we humans don't know what we're doing.
No, of course not. No.
Don't know what we're doing. I mean, we're very
No.
good at pretending we know what we're doing, but
All of us pretend to know what we're doing. I have a thing that I think a lot of, I know a lot of females, and maybe now more males as we are growing. I have a thing that I am the nurturer. I'm there for everyone, and it makes me feel good. And then I have to step back and go, wait a second. What is this really covering up by doing all that? Yes, am I helping people? Does it make them feel great? I open up their minds, and that makes them think, yeah. But then what is that doing to me? And that sounds like I'm being selfish, but it's not. It's this, I'm peeling away some layers going, okay, now you're just covering up
mm.
shit you don't want to work with because you're just going to help them. And does that make sense?
Mhm,
Um,
yep,
and
and
I
you're
see a
tapping
lot of
into
women
something
doing
that
that.
needs to be another episode now because it's massive.
Yes. Yeah, it is. It's huge. It's
That's a big
huge.
one.
Yeah.
I'm an overgiver. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a whole episode.
Yeah. We definitely will do that because I know many, many people that are doing just that.
Mhm. Yeah. Well, so if you're struggling with any kind of addiction, which probably most of us are,
Hmm.
you can Google it. There's probably a fellowship, or you can just keep coming back here, and we're going to be talking a lot about it. And there's a tribe here of people, and just keep coming back. Don't do it alone. We love you until you can love yourself.
Amen.